Everything was so trial and error. I mean, the whole thing was from scratch.
Everything would run as a smooth ship until the swell came up, and then...
I drive these guys crazy.
Yeah. It's,
He's got the Hollywood chopper. Dude, we're legit now.
FCD shot, take one.
One. Look like some 50-50 rail.
You want me looking at the camera or looking at you? Or?
I'll go sound. You guys ready to roll?
Totally,
Sure.
let's do it.
We're doing it.
Okay, I'm gonna tell this one story.
Oh, that's a good story.
Just a little side story here.
And there are some I would not want to... all right, well, here's one. And I'm not sure if I'm even supposed to tell this, but I'm gonna fucking do it.
I can neither deny that accusation, but
Whipped down his shorts and went, "Look at this bruise I got today, Yvonne."
Traded a surfboard for a horse. Got a tattoo.
That was epic.
Did he tag the cop car?
I think I'm like a walking lawsuit or something, I don't know.
Tequila tonight, tomorrow we ride.
That was a recurring problem.
I mean, it was almost dangerous.
Almost.
It was dangerous.
I was always skeptical if they ever had any cash in that place anyway.
We traded a surfboard for a lawyer's time.
Grabbed his goggles and went and grabbed a grinder and went,
Immediately grabs a 2x4 and just comes right back at me. Just like, "Whoa!"
Purple leopard skin tights will change your personality for a few hours.
Oh yeah.
And R&D includes all kinds of studies.
It's amazing we're all here.
Right?
Yeah.
They had one, I haven't told Fletcher where this board went, but. Who's Fletcher?
Who is Fletcher?
Who is Fletch? Jeez.
That's a good question.
God, I don't know how to I don't know how to Jesus Christ.
Fletch is a lot of different things.
He's a hairy little gnome.
He's a conundrum wrapped in a riddle.
He's pretty much ready to do anything, even bad ideas.
He's definitely not an extrovert.
Fletch is all right. Fletch is all right.
We're just tripping that people still don't know who Fletch is, man.
I'm Fletcher Chenard. I'm a surfer, shaper. Well before I started shaping, I was just non-stop surf all the time, frothy. I got into shaping mostly because I just wanted a quiver, a little bit cheaper way to do it. I didn't have a lot of like formal shaping training. You know, I had some early lessons with Steve Walden. So I was basically like sweeping up Steve's shop and probably causing more trouble than it's worth for him. He caught me shaping a chunk of insulation foam and asked me if I wanted to shape a board. I was kind of just hooked.
Oh yeah. That was, yeah. So we had to go with Fletch to Dave Parmenter's shaping room.
It was the perfect mentor for him with the way that Parmenter approached shaping.
And it was that big old gouge that Tom Carroll did at Pipe. And next to it was Richie Collins with like webs on doing errors. And it was just looked ugly. And Parmer had written up there, "This is not surfing. This is surfing."
Watching him progress when we were there, you could tell he wanted to be the best at what he was doing. He lived, breathed, and ate surfing and shaping and just understanding every aspect of the wave.
The light bulb started going off for my dad, and he had some people working on some foam prototype stuff.
We didn't have a Santa Monica store then. We didn't have Cardiff then. We didn't have any of that surf stuff at all. It was all before Patagonia Surf. It was point blanks, off the radar, YC side project.
In those beginnings, I remember it was about finding the best foam, trying to make a board that would last longer.
Yvonne's desire
to make an indestructible surfboard, and that's literally impossible. They're going to break.
Do you remember the article in Surfer Surfing? He's like, we're going to build the unbreakable surfboard.
Oh, I think I do remember
Yeah,
that.
and
And
that
everyone
was
went
like-
out and tried to break them.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, any way they can try to break them.
Yeah,
they would do it.
we didn't really mean unbreakable. We just meant last longer. The way he saw it, the surf industry was pumping out junk, disposable everything. Breakable boards, breakable trunks, it was great for business and making money, but it was basically, image-based nonsense.
Like Yvonne often did, it was an idea in his mind, but it was up to others to carry it out.
Myself and Kim Stroud and Yvonne were part of this thing called Skunk Works.
And it was sort of like their experimental, cutting-edge type department. There was only a couple guys in there.
Yeah, we were testing, that was Auntie Kim. She is a badass.
I knew nothing about surfboards. And Yvonne doesn't give you a lot of steps. He would tell me, oh, here, I want to test stringers. Take this wood and go get some foam and glass it up with this and break it. And I want results. And then I hired Sam.
He was like the smart MIT engineer.
Doing all kinds of scientific lab codey.
And he learned how to build the blank.
And then doing the fancy break 'em machine and super eclectic group of people.
Crack. Keep me out of general population. They don't want me talking to anybody. Paddled up the point and slapped everybody in the face. I paddled by. This thing's sliding down my belly button. I don't know what that's gonna sound like, but all kinds of different foams. There's closed-celled, open-celled.
And then how are they gonna sun fade up on the roof of the shack?
We had some really far out, crazy materials.
Made one out of this black volcanic glass, bubbled up everywhere, turned into a death trap.
Trial and error, we were eliminating little by little what was going to work and what wasn't going to work. Yvonne said from the very beginning, if we have 10 projects, one may make it to development. And I think that's really the only project that actually made it to development was surfboards.
First of all, I don't remember at what point, how did you go from working at GPIW to running Point Blanks?
Yeah, it was, so anytime extra work came up at GPIW that didn't involve folding fleece products, I would take it, right?
So one day the manager says, hey, Chris, Yvonne is going to come over and wants to talk to you. And I'm instantly thinking oh, what did I do, right?
I'd already been rousted by the cops a couple times for sleeping in my van out in front of the store. Right?
And I remember them banging on the door. Does your boss know you're doing this? I was like, I think so. He came over to talk to me, and that's when he said, hey, I'm starting this surfboard company, looking for someone to kind of manage it. Would you be interested?
And then Chris hired a few more people after that.
Hefe, Bobby Lama, Sammy.
Before we get too deep into it, don't introduce yourself there, Jason.
Oh yeah, forgot about that.
Get sucked in.
So yeah, my name, I'm Jason McCaffrey, and I was the first guy he hired, luckily. I mean, we surfed, but we didn't know anything about building surfboards when we started. We just knew we wanted to do it.
Yeah.
That was it. We're like, this is gonna be the coolest thing ever.
Everything was so trial and error. Oh, that didn't work. Oh, that's not gonna work. Let's put this sandbag here to make that work. I mean, the whole thing was from scratch.
The test that we would kind of use to impress people that weren't familiar with the boards.
Yeah.
I would take a shortboard and put it upside down on the ground and just stand on it in the center. And I don't think there's many polyurethane boards you could have done that too.
I was definitely living in slow when they were down here doing that.
Our first task was to get Fletcher on board. And so we used to do these road trips, and so we'd be all goose, 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 goose. Hey, come up, literally go up into his bedroom, kind of peel him out of there.
I was paying less and less attention to shaping boards for local guys up north. It just made more sense to come back down here, get involved.
I think that's what got him more into it. He loved working with his friends. He loved surfing. He loved building stuff. We all loved the same things.
Yeah, and he was good at it. I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, that guy could shape a rail. He had an eye for it.
And then when we came back down here, met the rest of the guys, and you couldn't write a better script.
The point blanks that was over there, that was straight up as it gets.
West side, man, west side.
Yeah, tin shed building.
The parking lot was dirt.
There's bunk beds in the office.
Caffrey lived in the shop, all of them lived in the shop, really.
So I was a boss. I built this loft in the office and had a futon up on top.
He was in the C-suite.
Jason was down below, and he didn't quite have a bed, but he did have 3 chairs.
He would line some chairs up. He would call it not going to bed, but going to chair.
I needed 4, so I had to sleep with my knees bent, but...
We had a lot of nighttime visitors.
A lot
too.
of.
Like we had a hammer. My dad's like, "Where's Maya?" It's like 3 a.m.
Gas siphoning was happening. So we were having an adventure.
I think today they'd probably say there's a lot of character on the west side.
Like it was gnarly.
It was pretty rugged back then. It was fun.
We were like basically homeless people that worked for Elon that didn't work for Patagonia, and nobody really knew any of us. The people walking into GPIW must have been terrified. Start smashing on the ground and beating it against the building, and then you look over and there'd be like someone getting out of their Benz going into GPI Dubs looking at you like, what kind of psychopaths are going on?
Who are these guys?
Like Motley Crue's blasting.
Why is making surfboards such a high-stress job?
To shower, like with soap and stuff, you had to like sneak into Patagonia. Like it was literally the best time of my life. I had no money, no worries.
If you're not going to make money, or decent money, you might as well be able to surf as much as possible. Was my theory. So the only way to tell if a swell was coming was surf fast.
Yeah,
we'd get it literally.
We'd have to steal them from the office.
Right.
Surfing came first.
If we were kiting and foiling back then, we wouldn't have.
We would have never got. We wouldn't be sitting here right now. We'd be still living in cars, probably.
Everything would run as a smooth ship until the swell came up, and then
We would shut the shop in like seconds.
It was Dubs' rule.
We would
He's like,
shut
be
the
ready.
shop.
Like a fire department. Alarm goes off, like, the board in the car. Jason jump in the front seat, I get in shotgun, you guys throw the boards in, jump in the back.
this place was a ghost town.
Yeah, we just worked for Elon. No one really knew what we were up to. Not even him. He's like, I'm gonna go show you what the boys are up to, and then door would be locked, and he's like, I don't even know where they are.
But you know, to his credit, sometimes when the surf was good, he would come over and be like, hey, guys.
He's like, guys, it's like on is firing. What are you guys doing here? And I think I just same deal. I just remember like, you know, boop.
And we'd take off in the Baiana, and he'd ride in the back with the boys, and we'd, you know, wherever.
I just remember thinking like, God damn, dude, it's like double and a half overhead here. And this guy's like 65 and charging it.
And pop up after like taking donuts and just start laughing.
Yvonne dropped in on me, and I watched him from the back, and I kicked out, and I was like, that was fucking cool.
These are those round nose wedge stringer shortboards that we were talking about. Like, we hated them.
Oh God. With the safety nose?
The nose of the boards are rounded to approximately 50 millimeters to protect the eye.
It didn't help our cause and acceptance of the surf community.
We kind of threw a whole lot of new at people in one package. It was a bit overwhelming, I think. They had round noses and wedge stringers, and they were different foam, different resin, and people didn't really know what to do with them.
Right.
Like, I don't even know if I should touch that. A lot to consume and understand and trust in without any explanation, really, because there's like 3 boneheads at the dead-end street, if you could find us.
There was very few people actually using alternative materials, period.
And I was actually shaping right across the street, and they were trying to market that their stronger foam, you know, and that stuff's a bitch to work with. So, I mean, we were going, wish you luck with that, guys.
And then that insane mental torture device of a shaping machine came into.
It was the worst. We need to even jig that up.
We're using a shaping machine to help reduce time and waste.
We duplicate your movement on one side, on the other side, so you can like do 2 drawings at the same time.
This allows our shaper to receive a board that is already roughed out.
Never. I mean,
Not even close.
It never worked.
This is what a finished blank looks like before we send them to be fine-tuned by the shaper.
Stuff that we would hand flesh, and he'd like, thanks.
Yeah,
Right.
Asymmetrical and like.
Oh my God.
It's actually more
This one's
work.
twisted. How did you twist it?
Yeah.
People that were calling looking for money, we owed them bills. Oh, you need to talk to the manager. Like, what's the manager's name? Like, Zach. And they'd be like, okay, and they'd call back and be like, is Zach there? And we'd know it was somebody trying that we owed money to. So we'd be like, yeah, that guy never works. He's so lazy. Like looking at him laying on the floor. Be like, you should call back later.
He smells.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, because we were like, you know, it was tight. You didn't pay yourself. Sometimes.
I
Like,
don't remember that, and I was the one that paid the bills. I'd be like, Chris, dude, this isn't happening. You know,
Yeah.
like this, we can't pay these bills.
It was before the grand opening going out about business party. And that was 99, I think.
It was a Point Blank's grand opening party. It came over and we had boards out and it was all this thing. And like, meanwhile, behind the scenes, we had a container full of surfboards and no place to sell them.
Sam was gone, Rob was gone, you were in Wyoming. So it was really just me, Fletch, and Chris James. And then he came in one morning and he was just like, you know what, Hefe, I don't think it's gonna work for me anymore. And, you know, gave me like a 3-minute speech. And then he was out. I looked at Fletch and he looked at me and it was just the two of us.
Quiet.
And I'm like, oh, we really need to regroup, sir. We said, all right, what are we gonna do? We need at least one more guy. And so we got to get McCaffrey back. We just got to get McCaffrey back. And you were like, I'm in, let's do it.
I waited till October though. Fletch's shapes were at a level, but the finish work wasn't quite there.
We're definitely
yet. What we did with foam and resin and glues and stringers, we weren't able to do on the glass side yet. That's when the glassing really became the focus, and like when Todd came in.
You know, they had hired a boat builder, you know, guy worked on the Oracle or something.
I got my new board and I picked it up and it was like heavy, like real heavy. I went to go buy blanks again, same glassing schedule, and the board that I made was 2 1/4 pounds lighter than the ones that they were getting glassed down south. Okay, something's amiss, you know.
Really, we have a winner.
And I was like looking around, I was like, what do you guys do here? And then
Get that a lot.
and I said like what I do back east, and Jay said, he goes, we're actually looking for someone like you right now.
They took that building and made it completely temperature controlled, climate controlled,
Yeah,
to be
it's
able to do
crazy.
epoxy oven. Like, that's the kind of stuff that really put a consistency and a next level to the quality and the finish work.
They were trying all kinds of different techniques that were a little outside of the norm.
Yeah, you'd walk out with something new, you know, it'd be like carbon fiber stringer. It was like 4.5 pounds. I'm
Yep.
like, this might be too light.
I remember battling with YC on that one, you know, it was like, oh, gotta be light, gotta be flexible. So then I built something like really light, really flexible. It's like, oh, it's too light, it's too flexible.
Well, I think that was the spirit of the place from the very beginning. When it was still just an idea, was let's never stop testing.
The things that I brought in are being used now, and those are damn good things.
Thank you,
so-
Todd. Nice work, bro. Nice job.
We had this like angst against like how Patagonia was trying to sell surfboards versus how we wanted to do it. And we were like, we don't think this is that cool. It just didn't speak to us. It was at a different approach. So they were our only customer, which is ironic, right? You being mad at your only customer, like, yeah, that's healthy. But somebody next door is probably doing surf ads with the boards, because that was out of our hands. Like,
It was cool and groovy, but they were blending in with the culture. They weren't leading the culture.
This is, you'll remember this, the Sea Slug logo, the Patagonia logo.
The inchworm.
We drew little like antenna and legs on it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we were like, this is the
That didn't
goofiest
last
logo.
maybe years.
I don't know, we were just angry all the time, but we started the Point Blanks part of it. We were doing our own and putting them in the shop and still doing Patagonia boards.
I think we were calling the weird off the menu stuff Point Blanks boards. Instead of being reactive to Patagonia business, we just took the reins and did it our way and brought it to Patagonia.
When that happened, we officially became in the fold and we committed to like actually staffing this bigger than us making surfboards. And it kind of made the industry pause a little bit and go, I wonder what they're gonna pull off. And that was the bullseye we had to hit. And bringing in Sammy, Benny, and that whole new crew was the only way to hit it.
And they needed a lammer, and Chris Malloy said, hey, you should try to get Sammy, he's good, right?
Sammy had a really good reputation in the industry.
I'm thinking I probably met Fletch probably around 2000, 99, around then.
Ben was part of the crew that we were afraid of when we were growing up. Down south.
Pulled up and this guy like stuck a nose of his board into Fletcher's Volvo and went like, ee, like all the way down the side of the car. I'm like, this is gonna be fun. Yeah, welcoming.
The key was getting away from your vehicle as fast as you could so you didn't get like tire slashed or keyed. You keep all the violence on the beach.
I'm from a town south of here, so they were pretty accepting of me. Back then there wasn't the crossover. And then just slowly was asked to come work here.
They wanted to use cutting edge materials, not just standard stuff. You go into the unknown, shall we say. Then when I felt how strong their foam was, you go, whoa, okay, you guys are onto something. You didn't want to admit it because it's not easy to work with this foam.
Sammy had so many things to figure out.
And epoxy is a whole different animal.
We could build great, solid, tough boards, but they didn't look like everybody else's.
May leave slight random streaks, ranging from yellow to black.
So if you have this great, long-lasting board that doesn't look as good as the one that's a couple $100 cheaper, guess what happens?
They weren't as sexy looking as some of the industry standard poly finishes.
Yeah, the mission was make more durable board and get them looking killer. That's been the project from day one. The cool thing here is hey, however long it takes, do it the best way. Brings it back to the art. Most people that start with epoxy just want fast epoxy. And it's hey, that's not the best epoxy, that's not the best product, rushing it through. So I did a couple discoveries and we got to where we're doing cut laps and pin lines. And
the things that are coming out of there now, as far as the quality and the visual, light years ahead of what I would have been able to bring to the table.
Pretty instantaneous visual quality change.
That doesn't happen overnight. But we did, we got through it and we got better and better at it. Benny was gluing up every blank by hand, gluing up every stringer by hand, working out all the foam. They were gluing up the bitch and stringers out of recycled hemlock, and those were just the strongest stringers. Down here we hated routing them, because that is just the toughest wood. And not to mention that was throwaway wood we were turning into boards. And then the raddest part was within 6 months of when I signed, Clark Foam folded.
That was a big moment in surfing when that happened. He
Grubby
revolutionized surfing
right?
by making the foam.
Right.
And then when he went out of business because of rules, that also revolutionized surfing by default.
No more polyurethane blanks available. Are you kidding? And I'm in here and we got a whole warehouse full of foam, 2 years worth of foam.
Yeah, we had phone calls that day.
That's when the public started seeing, there are alternative materials, and it's been around ever since.
I don't remember when the FCD thing started.
As I recall it, Fletch didn't want his name on the boards. It's the thing was, he started shaping all these ripping short boards especially, and everybody's asking, who shaped this board? So that's why we switched to FC, at least from my point of view.
Which is tough for me because I like to just build stuff and hide. I've never been very good at branding or marketing or anything like that. We made a conscious decision to go from Point Blank's Patagonia surfboards to putting it under my name because it'd take responsibility for the finished product.
It was a lot different than when we were putting the Patagonia logo on it. There was more pride in it, I think, because we were a team and we can't make Fletch look bad.
It felt better to be more of a traditional shaper surfboard brand than a division of Patagonia clothing, which just feels sort of corporate.
This is the part where we could be us, and we didn't have as many filters because this was FCD. And we felt like if it looked like Patagonia, people would know what the story was. Yeah. And we had a different one. It was the beginning of the time period where we kind of started to come into our own.
Our board started traveling the world.
I remember Bruce Irons or something, he was most underground dude ever is Cole Christensen.
I wasn't sponsored. I would work and I would surf and work. Dirtbag, traveling surfer. I did some of those drug trials, make some money that way. Whatever it took, right?
It took like years before I got a picture in the surf mag with my name actually spelled correctly. I had a double-page thread at my man that said unidentified. The first time they kind of got my name right, it said used cars salesman Cole Richardson. Pipeline.
I mean, the stories of him like showing up with duct tape on his elbow because they were arm wrestling all night, and coming out in the tinny and just like tearing the place apart with no leash. Like, I'm probably exaggerating. He probably definitely would have put it that way, but.
Fell in love probably like 18 times. Traded a surfboard for a horse. Got a tattoo. I was 18. Ended up catching the best waves that day and winning the $500 and ended up spending all the money at the disco that night. But I think I paid the guy back. McCaffrey knew that Fletch loved big waves and wanted to shape big wave boards and really refine that craft.
Fletcher would want to go surf like 30 foot. I'm like, yeah, no.
Or the waves that I wanted to be surfing, and then the waves that most of my friends wanted to be surfing.
I have an almost drowned story from surfing with Fletch.
Had to keep up with
how
Fletch.
that happens.
I just kept wanting to find bigger and bigger waves.
We had all gone to our limit with Fletch and big waves. Like,
for me, there was never that size.
And he wanted to keep going, so when he met Cole, it was perfect.
I remember just like being stoked at the idea. Cole's this underground charger. Be stoked to get him to try some stuff out and get some feedback.
And his interest with me was more, well, let's make big wave boards and you test them and let's see if we can make the best big wave boards in the world. I'm like, okay, I'm in, let's do it. And I remember the first board he shaped me, it was a 9.6. It was too thin and it was just didn't look right, you know? That first board evolved into more conversations and more boards, but we still hadn't met yet.
But I don't remember the first time I actually met you. I don't know.
I do. It was the Mavericks 2010. You drove up with the yellow and red board.
Yeah, that Valentine's Day swell. I was pumping.
I clearly remember Fletch like helping me get the board ready. He was so pumped on the board. He's like sanding the fins, just fucking making sure there was all tits.
I'm like, oh yeah, well I gotta get a wave now.
I think on the surfing side, that was the beginning of something special.
After we got to know each other, and we decided we liked each other.
Then that's when we schemed the trip to Arica, and we're like,
post-op, it'll be uncrowded, and we can really get into it. So yeah, that trip happened.
Well, straight up, I was spooked.
So we had no safety plan, no flotation, no jet skis in the channel.
Nobody around. And it got big.
Surf is about as big as we expected.
Like, the second pulse of that swell was big.
We were setting off car alarms last night every other set.
The peak of that biggest day, you had already gotten blown into the beach, and I was out, I think, by myself. I couldn't even get down the face on most of them.
And this huge wave came and
Did you guys ever see that? I could not believe that.
Huge. He has a still shot of that in his office.
Oh,
and
he does.
Let me just, oh, this isn't his office anymore.
How did I drink somewhere? Yeah, so if he would have just got pounded, it might have gone the other way.
That was a full-on, like, who's that dork?
Yeah, it was killer, man. For me, that was a pretty pivotal trip in like our relationship and the development of and progression of the boards. I remember that piece of paper that we kind of sketched out the board designs on, and
yeah, right over there.
Here you go. What's it written on there?
It's written on the menu ejecutivo de Panamericana Hotel Arica. Y para postre, torta de mango.
That's pretty sick. I didn't even realize that was on the menu.
We kind of just broke down some different board ideas. Remember this?
Yeah, man. I had enough bad wipeouts that I realized what I was doing wrong in my shaping.
That was kind of the starting point for some of the ideas that have evolved.
It was like kind of like the wish, like the dream list. I'm like, let's do these boards. And then he came home and did them all.
Fletch would come back just like brain on fire to try and make the next thing. And
I could see and understand what he needed to do, what he wanted to do. You've done some pretty crazy stuff that I didn't really expect to come out of our boards.
Those guys went from just like charging soul surfers to all of a sudden there's media coverage. Not even a week of when the board's done in here, we see it halfway across the world, like on a 50-foot barrel, you know.
And I remember walking over to the glass shop and meeting the guys.
And the guys go, whoa, I just finned that thing, or I just lammed that.
And this guy, Sammy.
And you go, look, it's in the barrel.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, these guys are awesome.
And it's like, it keeps us going. That's what keeps us going, you know. And
I saw like how professional they were and how committed to their craft.
You know, you grow up shaping and it's all about fun, surfboards are fun. And then all of a sudden these guys, you go, these guns, this is life or death stuff. So you got to get every little aspect right.
So I don't think there's, you know, many glassers in the world that can do it better.
So I can't say enough. Building those boards and then getting to see them ride, you know, and not just once or twice, but again and again and again. It's awesome. That's like the best part of working there.
Seeing those boards in, you know, some of the biggest paddle ends ever.
When we talk about progression and big wave surfing, it's, yeah, obviously to paddle into bigger and bigger waves, but to actually be able to surf the waves rather than just hold a line.
We were talking about what's the smallest board you can ride the biggest wave on, and what would that look like?
And that board, I really fell in love with, and then I ended up getting this wave that was totally.
We've gone back and forth a lot about why you didn't make it out of the barrel. And like,
well, I kind of did make it out.
I mean, it was an impossible situation, but like we tried to solve for that so many times. Getting that wave on a 7.6, it barely worked, but it worked.
I couldn't believe I made the drop. And the board did everything we needed to do there. It just squirted off the bottom. Like, what if we had different fins? It just set the line and it was just going perfect. But what if we had different rails? And I remember it coming up and I knew I had to get, so I did my best to get up high. But what if we had different bottom contour? But then ultimately, you know, there was a section of the wave. Like I think we've had more rail on a bigger board, and I fell off, and then I came out into the light upside down. So yeah, so I'm really glad that happened because talk about it forever. Just fucking closed.
Fun experiments like that are what makes it all worth it.
And now he's got these, incredible team riding the boards. Guys like Dan Ross, Leah Brasi,
and Rio.
Ramon Navarros and the Mekis, the Chilean boys.
That's Quentin in the Philippines on like a knee-high wave. But that's the difference between his surfing and my surfing.
And that relationship is special. I mean, you look at all the surfer-shaper relationships around the world in our sport, most of them are, lifelong relationships because it takes that long for you to really become in tune with like your equipment and the translation from the shaper to the equipment.
The translation, how do you translate it from us into your brain? Ramon's WhatsApp's broken English, my mumble jumble.
Yeah, I don't know. With some people it's harder than others. That board sucks. That board is garbage. What were you thinking? Another one of those weird, unquantifiable things.
I think what separates Fletch from a lot of shapers is that he spends a lot of time on his boards. Not just surfing, but kite surfing, foiling. He foils, surfs, what is the new thing? He wing foils, he does all these things.
I have so much fun just basically being a kook doing all this other stuff that is 100% surfing. It gives you an alternative design frame of mind to go to, and you can think outside of the box for a while, do something completely different and still be creative. I drive these guys crazy.
Yeah. I think our mistakes are actually more exciting than our accomplishments sometimes around here.
That's what makes the good ones great.
Yeah.
You gotta eat shit. There's no perfect.
Nah. If there was ever a chance of achieving perfect, it wouldn't even be interesting. That's the whole thing. You try and try and try, and you get better. Hopefully you achieve some of your goals. We've gone into some pretty big research projects that have ended up in dead ends. We've tried to find foam replacements forever, and you just end up having a less durable product and it goes in the trash sooner. Our biggest environmental advantage is just making boards that last longer.
That's what was so interesting about it. They were actually making magic boards that last long rather than just make magic boards. These guys were about selling you less boards, which is probably not the best business plan, but
we still get people that'll find them in places and send photos, and I send them to him. I'm like, remember this one? I was like, I think that's your handwriting. So
they're 20 years old and people are still riding them.
There's one down the street. I saw it when we were going to get lunch yesterday. We haven't made that board in 20 years.
I remember Dale Velzy telling him, how you doing on your board shaping? And he goes, I think I'm getting pretty good at it. He goes, have you done 10,000 boards yet? I don't think so. He's like, well, you're not close.
Coming from the other side, like you're having your eye and wanting things to be a certain way kind of pushed everybody else to make it better too.
It's definitely not my show. I couldn't do any of the stuff that I do without everybody else.
It's hard to put in words, but like, it's a tribe. They're like my family, they are my family, that's it.
We all had each other's backs, no matter what.
Yeah. It's awesome. Like, the whole evolution from start to finish, from like living in the parking lot to literally sitting here right now, 25 years later, it's better than I ever thought it could be.
I couldn't be prouder of that time. With these knuckleheads, I'm impressed, so.
I mean, it's pretty crazy to think that like this is essentially my job for the last 20 years. Like this is it.
Yeah,
this is it on the table. It's really just surprised and still am to like have been fortunate enough to be involved in all of this stuff. It's ridiculous. I'm getting like goosebumps.
You kind of, I don't know, I was in it at the time, and you're just like moving a mile a minute and then having something like this to look back on, you're like, whoa.
we wanted to make enough money to go surfing. And that's all we ever wanted to do. The rest just kind of came out of it, you know? So we got to crack it, not screwing it up, and we went for it. And that's the one thing I think everybody here still shares, whether you lived in the dirt in 1999 or walked in last week. You're here to like see how good you are and be a part of something that is still every day trying to make it better and change the way things get done.
It's a wrap. Aren't you supposed to do it at the end?
Call it, Sam. You're in charge now.